There you go.
The labor movement. The labor movement was a time of fighting for better wages, safer working conditions, and reasonable hours. The movement resulted in health benefits, end of child labor, and aid to injured workers. The labor movement is defined as a political movement campaigning to improve the rights and conditions of working people. The labor movement included strikes, protests, and collective bargaining, a way of negotiating with managers, an effort to change the working conditions. This movement consisted of labor unions that fought for things like health benefits, injury insurance, no more child labor, 40-hour week, and safer working environments. The labor movement came after the Industrial Revolution created factories within cities. Spanned over the 19th century, about 1825 to 1872, the movement pretty much ended in the 19th century, but many laws and acts were passed in the 20th century, and we can still see the effects of it today in our society. During this time, many companies came about needing people to work, which created jobs, but also a lot of unneeded suffering for families. People started to realize a change that needed to happen in the workplace. When once companies' employees started protesting and fighting, it encouraged others to fight as well. Most of the protests and revolts occurred in many big cities because that is where most factories are located. The movement was very popular in cities like Chicago, Illinois, Lowell, Massachusetts, and New York, New York. As the Industrial Revolution progressed, more people needed to work to provide the new technology that was being used nationwide. With this need for workers came hard work, long hours, and small wages. The labor movement took place due to unfair hours and wages given to people doing extremely physically strenuous jobs. They protested against their mistreatment by going on strikes like the Homestead Strike and the Pullman Strike. The United States Department of Labor was signed in on March 4, 1913, by William Howard Taft. The reason for the Bureau was to foster, promote, and develop the welfare of working people. The department has multiple branches and protects workers' rights and protects against child labor. Fair Labor Standards Act. This act establishes minimum wage, overtime pay, record keeping, and youth employment standards. This act affects the federal, state, and local sectors of employment. In the youth sector of the act, it limits the amount of time a minor can work, and minors are not allowed to work in places that are detrimental to their health, for example, a mine. Keaton-Owen Act of 1916. This act was put in 1916 and used the government's power to regulate interstate commerce. The act banned products from any factory, shop, or cannery that employed children under the age of 14. The act also banned people 16 or younger from working at mines, and they were not allowed to work more than 8 hours a day. The act was later struck down by the Supreme Court because it was considered unconstitutional in the case Hammer v. Dagenhart. Overall, the labor movement was a critical event in American history that changed working rules and conditions forever. People's long and hard efforts to change were successful in the end. The labor movement made work environments safer, protected children from work, created health benefits, injury insurance, and the 40-hour work week.